I like the definition of Attorney Di Malanta earlier, but I agree in IEA definition of energy security. They focus on uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price. And the second one that I'd like to show is in the PEP. Technically, our demand, as they projected, would double every 10 years. From 15.2 gigawatts in 2020, it will be around almost 30 by 2030, and 54.6 by 2050. And very important is the projected energy mix of RE and non-RE is 35% RE by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So if we look at it from the other side, it means that by 2030, we will be dependent, 65% of our energy mix will depend on imported fossil fuel, 50% by 2040. So from the risk perspective alone, in terms of supply and price, these are two things which are not within our control. Now, very recent experiences that we had, in December 2021, Typhoon Odette brought a lot of damage in Surigao, Bohol. I was there in Cebu and also in Leyte. And then 2 months after, we had the war in Ukraine, where our fuel prices, like diesel before was less than 50 pesos, all of a sudden it was almost 80 pesos. And then April of 2022, we had Typhoon Agaton, which damaged significantly the transmission lines of NGCP in Leyte. And very recently, only January 20 this year, NAPOCOR says that it might have to reduce power services in missionary areas by 50% or more, simply because of the price of fuel. So there are various risks to our energy supply, which prevents us from having energy security, whether it is geopolitics or in the Philippines, because we are always hit by disasters. We have more than 20 typhoons. So there is always that problem. So I'd like to share a personal experience. As I said, I was having my Christmas vacation in Bohol, happily in December 16, when Typhoon Odette hit it. And we experienced what a total system breakdown means. We did not have access to the generating plants because we are connected by a Leyte and Bohol submarine cable. The hydro plants, small ones in Bohol, were all flooded. The diesel power plant in Tagbilaran was out of commission. The power barge in northeastern Bohol had a very low capacity, but worse than that, there were people who owned generating sets, generators, but we had no supply of fuel because the barges from Cebu to Bohol could not operate because the ports of Cebu and ports of Bohol were damaged by the typhoon. So in terms of the source of electricity, we just don't have it. And then in terms of transmission, it was heavily disrupted. So I said, the towers that connect the Bohol-Cebu submarine cables were badly damaged, and it took months to repair that. And then NGCP lines were destroyed. On the local scene, even if we had power, the distribution lines of the local utilities were also severely damaged, and power lines were cut off. And from December until late April, we didn't have a lot of power in Bohol. Gradually, it was restored, but it was a case in which not only one component, like we lacked supply, not only transmission, but the whole thing simply was lost. And so that's, for me, that's an extreme example of what's the meaning or the implication of a lack of energy security. By the way, because we didn't have power, we cannot withdraw from banks. They were all offline. We cannot use our credit cards because they were also offline. We didn't have refrigerator. We had to go to the market every day, and then add to that COVID. So it was really very difficult. So, as Simon Sinek says, innovation is not born from dream. Innovation is born from the struggle. So we had to find a way to have power. So what did we have? We had batteries in our cars, and so we bought DC to AC inverter an example here is 100 watts. We connect it to the battery of our car, and at least we can power our homes from 6 o'clock until 9 p.m. So that we can cook and have dinner. And then once we already had, we can already go to the gasoline stations, we gas up. When our battery power was almost consumed, then we have to start our engines and use our alternators and do that. But the point that I'm saying is this. Actually, we have an opportunity to innovate because we are facing a problem. If we are not facing a problem, there's no what's it, motivation for us to innovate. Now, so talking about innovation, we already have the technology. It was mentioned already before, like solar is the most affordable. And the good thing about solar is that it is predictable, at least it will produce. It is intermittent, yes, but we know that it will produce power during daytime, okay? And we know what time will that be, 6 to 6 maybe, or 7 to 5 during the day. It is very flexible on where you are going to put it, how big it would be. So you can have a large 400 megawatt solar farm like what ASEN has in Palawig, Zambales, or you can have a 1 kilowatt in the rooftop. And the good thing about it is the warranty of solar panels is already 25 years. And once you install that, there is no fuel supply risk. It will continue to operate as long as the sun is there. So in other words, we have the technology. It's now a matter of how to use it best, where to use it. From my side, my bias is I look at it from the customer perspective. We are a very small company. We focus on assisting the customer to have more energy independence. Now, the other two parts of our basic energy structure will be transmission and distribution. So how do you address that? So our solution is to produce power near or at the place where it will be consumed. So it could be home solar, it could be a community solar. And by the way, there are now grid-forming microinverters that can operate even if in off-grid mode. It is even without batteries. So what you do is your supply chain of electricity from a long generation transmission distribution, you can compress that by putting your generation in your rooftop or in your stream farm, in this case in Jensan, or in an island like what we had in Bohol, and then you can produce your own electricity. The moment you have that, by the way, I'm talking from my personal experience. After Typhoon Odette, I installed a 5 kilowatt hybrid system at home. Practically, I'm now energy independent. I can switch off my DU. I have not applied for net metering yet because of the long requirements that it entails, but I don't need the power from the DU. I switch on the DU just in case I would like to add, power to my additional air conditioners. But generally, I can go off grid. So, innovation will ultimately lead to disruption. And I'm very, very happy that Attorney Di Malanta mentioned this, that this is actually the future. And as the other speakers mentioned, we all have a role to play. I think big companies can focus on large solar farms, large wind farms, and small companies, we can focus on, individual consumers, individual houses. I had a meeting last Monday with the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development because I inquired about their pambansang pabahay para sa Pilipino, where their target is 1 million homes. And then I told them, you know what, with 1 million homes, one house, I can install just 3 solar panels at 500 watts each. 3 solar panels, that's 1.5 kilowatt per family. With 1 million homes a year, if you are successful, you can generate up to 1.5 gigawatts of power from the rooftop of all these buildings. Even if you build an MRB, the size of the MRB, the footprint of one single MRB is at least 30 square meters. And that 30 square meters can give you 15 solar panels, which is actually enough for maybe 5 homes in that tenement, in that MRB. But being a housing agency, they were not thinking about power. They were thinking about housing. And I think from the DOI side, being an energy agency, you are not thinking about housing, you are thinking about energy. I think fortunate for me, because I came from the housing sector, I said, oh, here is an opportunity. If these people can just install 3 panels each on their house, it would help reduce the demand from the grid. And so while all the big players can add from the supply side, we can work in tandem with them by reducing the demand. And I thought I did a financial model. I said, what if you borrow at 9%, which is what DBP is charging now, for a fixed rate of 5 years, renewable to another 5 years, how will it look like? So I said, if I am from Manila, I'm paid 12 pesos per kilowatt hour to Meralco, okay, does it make sense? And I found out that yes, it makes sense. I can still save 14% to my power cost. And my budget for electricity would pay for, my savings would pay for the system. What if you go in the province and then the rate is 16 pesos per kilowatt hour? Your savings would increase from 67 to like more than 70%. And your LCOE is 475. Now, during that meeting of the Department of Housing and Human Settlements, I learned one thing. They said that, you know what, the government is providing interest subsidy to those home buyers of the Pambansang Filipino Housing Program. And do you know how much they're going to pay? It's only 1% interest, so that the house will be affordable. So I said, fine, if you put solar in all the rooftops of those 1 million homes and they pay only 1% interest, and you amortize that for 25 or 30 years, like you amortize the house, then the incremental cost of the solar component of that is very, very low. But what they save is more than 50% or up to more than 75% of their electricity expense, which is significant, which can help them pay off for this loan. So in other words, we have to tie certain things together. So the last one is the innovation. My problem was, I said, how am I going to encourage my employees to go solar? Because it is also expensive and I cannot finance it all from the company. And so we approached a bank and told him, okay, can you allow our employees to borrow so that they can install solar in their houses? And then through salary deduction, they're going to pay you. And we had an agreement with that. And in fact, I'm paying 7,000 pesos a month for 18 months for a 5 kilowatt hybrid that I have installed at home. So this is an example that, like, we can start with Manila Times or we can start with Abuitis to make sure that all our employees will have the solar and they would have better energy security through packaging it and through salary deductions. And I think there are other examples that can do that.